Hello and welcome to the Attunement Emissary Legacy series. My name is Gary Goodhue, and I will be your host. This week we're going to be diving right into Chapter 4 of 7 Steps to the Temple of Light. And Uranda has been taking us on this journey. It's a 7-step journey, and we're right here in the middle on Step 4, which is titled Assurance. Where does this journey lead at the end? He calls it the Temple of Light. I'm tempted to think of it as some sort of fully enlightened, awakened Christhood experience. Pretty amazing, but let's just recap what's happened so far in the first 3 steps. So the first step, patience, relates to the physical nature of the outer man, which is to say, how we relate to our physical world, the outside world, where one could be unmoved and undisturbed by anything that happens outside of themselves. And Chapter 2, Tranquility, relates to the mental nature of the outer man. And that's in relationship to mind, our thoughts, which stimulate our emotions, and coming into this place of stillness and calm, just tranquil. So not being agitated and reactive. And Chapter 3 was realization, which related to the spiritual expression nature of the outer man. Uranda takes us into this place of what I described as coming face to face with God. It's the awareness, the recognition of this presence, the wonderful one within, and the reality of that. Realizing that there is some great divine presence within ourselves. And in Chapter 4, Uranda takes us right into the heart of this connection with the wonderful one within, divine presence. Right into this space of absolute knowing. So really, the first 3 chapters are laying out some of our own personal areas of responsibility that we have when relating to this journey in spiritual awakening. First, our relationship to our outer world, our relationship to our mind, and our relationship to our spirit. And in Chapter 4, just like dropping down into the depths of the heart and coming to know God, not just have a perception of, but to know it, that is this space of assurance. It's wonderful to be able to go into this material, and there's 3 paragraphs inside of this chapter. Chapter 4, Assurance. Assurance relates to the outer man's first direct cognition of the presence of inner being. And this is that which is born of realization and is fathered by radiance. When separateness ceases and oneness is realized, assurance is certain. For the Blessed One knows that all things are, and in full response to the wonderful one within, the outer man acts with the consciousness of divine being. Here is that which allows perfect expression according to the perfect plan, for in it is that which is called faith. Absolute assurance is ever known by the Blessed One who abides in the presence of the Wonderful One. But it cannot be known by such as have not realized the presence. In such assurance, every act is in accordance with the perfect law which cannot fail, and every word expressed in such assurance will surely accomplish that whereunto it is sent. He who has entered into assurance knows what faith is. But he who has not entered in knows not the spirit of faith, but the letter only, and this is of no effect. So Uranda starts us off here with this first line, and I think the first line of each one of these chapters is important. So what he says is, assurance relates to the outer man's first direct cognition of the presence of inner being. The first ultimate knowing of the presence, direct meeting. And it's born of realization, which is chapter 3, and fathered by radiance. So a little bit of foreshadowing here into chapter 5. If you knew that God was absolutely real and present within yourself, this point within the progression of the 7 steps, the outer man comes into that knowing. There is no more guesswork of if. And Uranda's next line is, when separateness ceases and oneness is realized. So there's this teaching in emissary teachings called the One Law. It's a foundational teaching. There's a very specific way of describing the One Law using 5 steps. And those 5 steps are radiation, response, attraction, union, unified radiation. That first step, when that radiation is the love of God from the absolute realm, that's a constant. It doesn't change, it doesn't go away, always there. But the next couple steps is where we have our responsibility of responding to that radiation, moving into a process of attraction and moving closer and closer into the space of full union. I think those first 3 steps kind of describe that response and attraction phase, where when we disinvest in everything we have invested in the outer world to give us a type of experience, and we let all that go, and then we come into this calm space within the mind, then beyond all the busy thinking, what shows up there is the inner presence, the wonderful one within. We begin to respond to that. And then that leads us through this point of attraction, which is like coming face to face with God. And here in assurance, we have a union where there's a full knowing. Oneness is realized and separation has ceased. And so from this place, in full response to the wonderful one within, the outer man acts with the consciousness of divine being, because divine being is the identity that has now been moved into from this direct knowing. And from that space, what moves through the self is not the lower self of the outer man and the outer mind, trying to relate to and maneuver and manipulate the outer world. It's the inner self of the wonderful one within, which has perfect expression and is operating from a perfect plan. And he says that is what is called faith, which is an interesting thing, because faith is normally thought of as putting our trust in a higher power to manifest and create what we want in our experience, or just completely giving up any of our own desires and wants and trusting that everything that's happening is according to a higher plan, even though we can't see it or understand it. And that is likely the human attempt at faith. You know, that's our understanding of it. From the outer man in a separated state, that's about as close as we get. But in this space of assurance and the knowing of union with the one within, what is moving through us is coming from that fully holy, universal, cosmic, creative source. And in such assurance, in that space, every act is in accordance with the perfect law. Every word that is expressed from that space will surely accomplish where it's sent. One who is in that space knows faith because the outer man knows itself as the wonderful one within. And so he who has entered into assurance knows what faith is. But if you haven't gotten there, knows not the spirit of faith, but the letter only, and that is of no effect. Now maybe we have some effects from trusting in a higher power, but not the kind of effect that leads to the end of these 7 steps, to the temple of light fully embodied and radiating in the world as God presence, incarnating in and as your human self in a human body in this world. Next paragraph. Inner assurance is absolute, unwavering, centered in the eternal law of being, without doubt in action, without fear in thought, and without uncertainty about that which is. In assurance, there is no lack nor limitation, for the vision is not limited to that which is seen by mortal eye or known by mortal mind. So again, the outer man in a separated state of consciousness, very much like what we know as our common human consciousness, has this relationship with faith and doubt, like these two opposing forces. What Uranda is saying is transcending that whole dualistic dynamic. From this space of knowing oneness, the assurance that comes from that is absolute and unwavering, because it's centered in the eternal law of being. What comes up in me is to go into this space by remembering the eternal law of being as the reality of who I am. And from that space, there can be no doubt, there's no fear, there's no uncertainty, no lack, no limitation, nothing ever holding oneself back, because the self that's showing up isn't the physical bound self. And that is an exciting thing to experience. Last paragraph. Inner assurance comes not from outer mind attempts to use so-called willpower, nor is it to be found in endless repetitions of so-called affirmations. For the only source of such assurance is the wonderful one within. When the outer mind has let go of all its desires and wants, it is absorbed by tranquility. And out of tranquility comes the realization of the presence of the wonderful one. When the presence is known, the fullness of all things is found to be in that presence. And from this conviction in the wonderful one comes assurance. Blessed is the one who thus lets go and abides in the presence, for he has learned to let love radiate. The affirmations, the practices, the willpower, the putting oneself through some sort of vigorous or rigorous activity, any of that doesn't do it. The only thing that does it is actually coming into that space of knowing within oneself. We can't come into that space by all of our trying and doing and wanting. None of that will ever get us to this space of true assurance, knowing the one within, in oneness. Here we have a very simple process that he's laid out that we can follow that will get you there. So what he says again, when the outer mind has let go of all of its desires and wants, and that's the essence of the step of patience. It is absorbed by tranquility, and out of tranquility comes the realization of the presence of the Wonderful One. So I think when we withdraw all of our attention that we put on the outside world, and we draw all of that back, and then all that attention begins to turn onto ourselves, into our own mental invisible realm of our thinking and imaginations and memories and all the stuff that goes on there. And when that becomes still, then the attention draws even further up to this presence of the Wonderful One. And if we maintain our attention on that, thereby giving our response, then we're drawn up into a union. And from that faith, assurance, knowing, there is nothing in the outer world or nothing within the psychology of my psyche that can ever take me out of that space once I've fully known it. And so blessed is the one who thus lets go and abides in the presence, for he or she has learned to let love radiate. And if love is the primal power of the source of creation, creator, and radiating that love is the pure activity of the universe in motion, then let just means that we have to get out of the way. Blessed is the one who thus lets go and just abides, allows that which is higher to move through all the capacities of oneself, and ultimately the experience of that is the radiation of love. I'm so honored to be able to share this information with you, this sacred journey that Uranda is leading us through with this material. If you've enjoyed this episode, then just smash that button, like, share. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what your comments are. Perhaps if you've had an experience of knowing that oneness within yourself and coming into the place of assurance, then share with us, because the more of us that engage with this divine absolute reality and can show others that it's possible for them too, well, I think that's our mission, and that's what causes the awakening. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We know what we express, so express it, and know that we are the ones bringing forth a new reality. I leave you with this blessing. May you attune to the highest, maintain a vibration of love, and uplift your world by blessing all. Until the next time.